Anti-Capitalism and the dumbest bill in America. This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials. And the Millennial joining me today is, of course, Christopher Hopkins, our producer on the other side of the camera. Welcome, everyone. This podcast is titled Anti-Capitalism. We're going to take this in a little bit of a different direction for a change, because it's not going to initially sound completely like something that is describing anti-capitalism per se, other than the very first story that we have, which is the Anti-Capitalism Cafe. There's a Canadian cafe called the Anti-Capitalist Cafe, where you pay what you can when you walk into the store. Well, it's shutting down. Imagine that. So an anti-capitalist coffee shop in Canada is closing down after just a year in business, its owner announced, citing the lack of generational wealth and seed capital from ethically bankrupt sources, whatever that means, as the reason for being unable to continue to operate the business. In other words, this guy who said, hey, come on in and get some coffee, and come on in and get some pastries this morning or anytime during the day, but pay whatever you can. And if you can't pay anything, then that's fine too. So he called it the Anti-Capitalist Cafe, thinking that that would catch on. And guess what happened? It didn't catch on. No one paid for anything when they walked in, or they didn't pay quite enough for him to pay his rent and or for him to pay for the supplies. And obviously, of inflation, he has to pay a lot more for the cups and for the coffee and for the pastries and so forth. I mean, what an idiot, right? What an idiot. This, ladies and gentlemen, should be the case study in every business school and every political school about why communism fails, whereby each person works according to their ability and takes according to their need. In this particular anti-capitalist cafe, each person gives and pays what they're able to and takes whatever they want. And it didn't work. Imagine that. Just like communism doesn't work, because anti-capitalism is by definition communism, socialism, totalitarianism. Never leads to a good thing, because it's one of the isms for sure. So, quote, it's been an amazing experience. This is from the owner. Connecting with so many great community members, sparking desperately needed debate, raising the blood pressure of conservatives that includes you, anarcho-capitalists and libertarians, fulfilling the dream of most service workers by not having to tolerate the presence of professional class traders, the pigs in the military, in other words, and experimenting with living and working in ways that don't enthusiastically embrace the pure misanthropy of capitalism. Shop owner Gabriel Sims Fewer, of course he has two last names, hyphened, wrote on the cafe website to announce the closing. So, look, folks, it's pretty funny that anyone would think that this is a good idea, but this is what happens with, and I know this is in Toronto, Canada, but it's just like right across the border, right? Right across the Great Lakes in Canada. And this is what happens when you have really poor public education systems, because you have idiots who actually think that they can open up a business where you don't charge anything. And you're actually providing real goods and services, in this case, food and drink, and you're not really charging. You don't really have a price. You don't have a, I mean, what does he have? I mean, I was looking for this online. I'm like, where's his menu? What does his menu say? 1 large cup of coffee, pay what you can, 1 chocolate croissant, pay what you can. I mean, what? Like, how do you do this? It's so stupid. So stupid. And I'm not sure if the guy is a millennial. He kind of looks sort of like he is. But it does seem like something that would happen in a younger generation, and the idea that they would be inspired by the failed societies overseas, like the former Soviet Union, right? Or Cuba or Venezuela. Oh, here's a really great idea. So we're calling this podcast Anti-Capitalism, ? Because I believe that a lot of what we're seeing today in America, modern America, is actually aimed at ending capitalism and Western values. And you might say, well, that's kind of obvious, but you know what's not obvious? Is what they're attacking. Because we're finding ourselves constantly defending on all sides and all flanks constantly, and we forget what they're really trying to do is to undermine our actually very belief in our system of government and in our values. And here's a great example. A teacher in Baltimore, and we also have examples in Iowa and elsewhere, but a teacher in Baltimore removed her children, primarily her youngest son, from school because the teachers were actually not even talking about American history, but instead were dissing anyone from American history that was white. I mean, this is so stupid, right? Who does this? And this has become acceptable. I mean, it's the new Jim Crow, and it's alive and well in Baltimore. And by the way, it's also alive and well in the governor's mansion in Maryland as well. So the system is failing. Why this Baltimore teacher left her job to homeschool her youngest son. Bianca Tapahuasco was afraid her first grade son was being exposed to adult topics like gender identity and sexual orientation, and simultaneously, and he's in elementary school, by the way, and simultaneously worried that Charm City's education system would fail him. So for those of you who don't know, Baltimore has been known as Charm City for many years. I'm not sure how much charm there is there now. So the mother of three quit her teaching job to homeschool her youngest. So the mom was actually a teacher herself. And because she's a teacher, she was paying very close attention to the curriculum that her son was given and taught in the public school. Quote, "Politics don't belong in the classroom," she said. "This system is failing because the children are not being prioritized." Tapahuasco, the mom who taught Spanish to elementary schoolers at a Christian school, said she saw teachers sneaking their political bias into the classrooms. She also heard stories from private and public school students she tutored that lessons on sexual orientation and families were confusing them. These are children. She worried that no school in Baltimore could effectively teach core academics without inserting bias or adult topics. That's where public education is today. Quote, "Whatever lifestyle you want to live, that's your choice," she said, "but don't introduce it to a 4-year-old. So she pulled her youngest son out of a public charter school in February of 2020, leaving her oldest sons, now in 9th and 11th grade, in their vocational schools for their social aspect and for access to specialized lesson plans. But when schools had to shutter because of the COVID-19 pandemic, Tapahuasco said her fears were confirmed. Quote, "I saw in virtual learning where the indoctrination was starting to creep in." She said one teacher, now here's where I wanted to go with this. One teacher in public school showed her son a picture of President Andrew Jackson and called him, to her son and to the entire class, another white guy that you don't need to learn about. Imagine anyone saying that in any school, no matter your color. That would be obviously racist, and it's promoting Jim Crow, literally. So again, the teacher showed the photo to the class and said, of the president, Andrew Jackson, the photo of him, "That's just another white guy you don't need to learn about." The number of families that homeschooled their kids more than doubled from 2019 to 2021. And I'm bringing this story up because it's a renewed story that was refreshed, because increasingly the schools throughout many states, certainly the public schools, are getting worse. And you're having people who otherwise really aren't political, like this lady. She's not really a political person at all. Like, for example, she would vote for probably the individual as opposed to the party. And what she wants is just her son to learn basic subjects like math and science and English and writing and reading. But the kid isn't getting it. And so increasingly, you're seeing this happening across America in different schools. And I only use this particular situation because of that example where, you have a teacher basically saying, well, that's somebody who's white from American history, and you don't need to learn about them. Well, I'm calling this podcast, as I said before, Anti-Capitalism, because I think that's really what's behind all of this. What's behind all of this is to undermine anyone who's part of American history, no matter who it is, as long as they've contributed to America in some way, right? Maybe they've done some bad things, okay, like all presidents do, but they've done some good as well. Let's just completely erase them from history. In fact, let's erase all American history and tell everyone how bad we are, and we need to completely wipe everything out, and the best way to start that is in public school, right? K to 12. It's called indoctrinating the kids. And so you also have the other states, like Iowa, which is actually banning lessons on sexual topics aimed at young students and beefing up parental rights so as to make public schools accountable. And here's another example. I have to give this example too, ladies and gentlemen, because it's in Maryland. Maryland School District, Montgomery County, Maryland, which is mostly occupied by federal employees. Yep, you heard it, federal employees. Right outside of Washington, D.C. Montgomery County, Maryland School District grooms children into the LGBT lifestyle by sponsoring a Pride Town Hall. A Pride Town Hall, right? Not a math town hall, not an English town hall, not a science town hall, a Pride Town Hall. I mean, so, and in the picture, and I hope, Chris, you can show this, maybe for those who are watching, there's a picture of 3 teachers behind a table, and the table's covered with a tablecloth, which is a Pride tablecloth, and on the table are probably like 30 books, at least, that are spread out on this table with a teacher sitting behind it in the school in a prominently located place for the Pride Town Hall for any child to go up and get a book so that the child can read about all the different types of sex. Now, these are teachers, and you can see them. They're all so happy. They're all so proud of themselves. To them, they're really excited about this. And what does that tell you? Why would they be excited about this? Right? Why aren't they in the classroom actually teaching curriculum? I want to make clear, too, we're not talking about health science curriculum, like teaching children how to not get pregnant. By children, I'm talking about, when their bodies begin to change, like, 8th grade, Usually it starts in 7th, I know, but you get the point, right? And you would think that would be something that would be Oh, no. They've thrown that out the door. They're expanding it beyond belief. So the 2023 Pride Town Hall, sponsored by Montgomery County Public Schools in the state of Maryland, might lead an observer to a simple conclusion. Females who serve as teachers, librarians, policy-creating school board members, and local legislators are leading the charge to groom vulnerable young students to embrace LGBTQ lives. The event took place at Walter Johnson High School, which, by the way, is considered one of the best schools in the greater D.C. area, public schools, that is, just outside of Washington, D.C., in Bethesda, Maryland, a wealthy Washington suburb. Some with alarming titles, and these are workshops, by the way, that they're holding. The teachers are holding workshops. Some of the workshops have titles offered to kids, parents, and staff, including getting a rainbow club started in elementary school. A rainbow club started in elementary school. Elementary school! In other words, indoctrinating students in elementary school about how to have sex with a partner of the same sex. Yeah, that's what they're teaching. Here's another title of another workshop, Transitioning in Montgomery County Public Schools. A transitioning workshop. Hey there, John, you going to the transitioning workshop today? No, George, I'm instead going to go to my math class and, learn a little bit of algebra. Really? And you should see the teachers. They're so excited to teach this. And here's another one. Here's another workshop. Supporting your LGBTQI plus MOUSC children from the mouths of middle schoolers. Let me say that again. This is the name of a workshop. Supporting your LGBTQIA plus children from the mouths of middle schoolers. In other words, middle schoolers who are LGBTQIA, right? 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, are holding their own workshop with the teachers, present, getting all excited, I'm sure. And they're giving you their perspective. A workshop where middle school students personally speak about LGBTQ plus issues. So you got a 6th grader, right? Brilliant. Brilliant. And there's a picture of the students. And of course, this particular article in LifeSite News has just the eyes of the children kind of blocked out, but otherwise their faces, you can see they're middle school kids. I have to admit, I was shocked when I sat down and looked around the auditorium. I hadn't anticipated the overwhelming presence of women and girls, easily compromising 90% or more of the attendees. Of those, half were adults and half were impressionable young children. Most of the adults were MCPS staff members. Oh, I'm sure they were. See for yourself in this brief video highlighting, and we're not going to show the video, but certainly we can show you where to get it. If you're interested, feel free to contact us. And here's the thing. This is happening in your public school system in Montgomery County, Maryland, and many places across the country. But Montgomery County is so in your face with this, literally and figuratively, that they're actually grooming children in elementary school and middle school. And you heard the title of those workshops. And you'll love one of the comments from one of the teachers. Quote, "I'm grateful that as someone who's an education policy maker, I am not in Florida or Texas or Montana or Nebraska or Idaho or Tennessee," said one of the teachers, bad-mouthing conservative-leaning red states that are taking a stand against the contagion of transgenderism and sexualization of children. So this is where your teachers are, ladies and gentlemen. And you should see we have a picture of this. This is a current picture. Like this just happened a week ago. And you got, 3 teachers standing in another picture, each holding a book sexualizing kids from K to 12. And one of the teachers is still wearing a mask. I mean, it's so creepy. It's so creepy. Can you imagine? I'm going to still wear a mask. The pandemic's not over yet. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so I have long thought that it's really anti-Westernism, but also really anti-capitalism that's trying to do this to your children, because you can convince your children that they are a different gender and that they are something that they're really not because they're so impressionable from K to 12. Then you can convince them that America is a terrible place and that capitalism is awful. Of course you can. And we even have a dumbest bill that will show how we, certainly not me, but the teachers, not all teachers, by the way, but certain legislators and certain school systems in certain states are trying to confuse kids even more. Another case, right, that's anti-capitalism and anti-Westernism. Joe Biden vetoed the Republican-led resolution to block the D.C. anti-cop bill. Remember, D.C. passed an anti-cop bill, anti-cop legislation. D.C. is a city that is run by and overseen by the United States Congress. So D.C. can pass stuff. D.C. can spend money, but ultimately it's the United States Congress that oversees D.C. and has a veto, if you will, over the things that they try to do. Thank God, because D.C. effectively wants to cancel the police, and at the same time, with rising crime and car thefts and carjackings all over Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, the idiots in D.C. who run the place introduce legislation to, among other things, make it so that you really can't police, and so that the bad people stay on the streets. And so the Republican-led United States House of Representatives said, no, we're not going to do this. The United States Senate agreed, sent it to Biden, and he blocked it. He blocked it. Biden blocked it, vetoed it. Now, why did he veto it? Because of the fact that there are very powerful people in our country who are anti-capitalism. They're anti-police. They don't believe in law and order. What better way to undermine Western philosophy and Western freedom and Western free thought? What better way to do that than to make you feel incredibly unsafe in your own community and in your own home? So then you're like, well, I don't believe that our system works anymore. And that's what they're trying to do. I don't believe our system. Maybe we should just throw out the system because it's not working, because I don't feel safe at home. They're doing it on purpose, right? Absolutely. And there's another thing, too, that's happened as well. And I have to bring this up because this is just incredible. And that is with the Los Angeles Dodgers, okay? This is incredible. So the MLB pitcher slams the LA Dodgers for honoring anti-Catholic LGBTQ plus group. And he says, it's a mockery of my own religion. So Trevor Williams, he's a pitcher with the Washington Nationals, criticized the Los Angeles Dodgers. Okay, so Trevor Williams is a pitcher for the Washington Nationals, criticized the Los Angeles Dodgers for honoring the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, SBI, a group of queer and trans nuns that regularly mock Catholics at the team's annual Pride Night. Now, folks, we do have a picture that Chris is going to put up. It's in one of these articles, Chris. And it is frightening. When you look at this, these individuals, what I see is hate, okay? Because they're hating on people's religion. And you have MLB, Major League Baseball, saying, it's okay. That's okay. It's only a church. And I think we will all agree the Catholic Church has had its problems and continues to, and is trying to fix many of those problems. But the idea that the entire church is bad because you have some that are, I mean, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And yet what these folks are doing is they're trying to destroy Westernism. They're anti-capitalist. They're anti-Western. They're anti-religion. And once again, it goes with the theme of this podcast. So the Dodgers initially rescinded the invitation to these folks from the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, who argued that having the group as the guests of honor for Pride Night on June 16th was condoning the mockery of the Catholic faith. The Dodgers reinstated the invite, however, after the LGBTQ plus groups threatened to boycott, prompting Williams, to address the situation Tuesday on Twitter. Quote, as a devout Catholic, I am deeply troubled by the Dodgers' decision to reinvite and honor the group Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence at their Pride Night. This year, Williams said in a post, to invite and honor a group that makes a blatant and deeply offensive mockery of my religion and the religion of over 4 million people in Los Angeles County alone undermines the values and respect of inclusivity that should be upheld by any organization. It is a clear violation of the Dodgers' discrimination policy, bingo, which explicitly states that any conduct or attire at the ballpark that is deemed to be indecent or prejudiced against any group or religion is not tolerated. That was so well done. I'm sure he had help writing that, but I'm glad that he did because he's taking a stand against these nuts. And again, just take a look at them. Just look at these idiots. I mean, it's frightening when you look at them because you say to yourself, they look like, what's that movie that came out where you have the masked guy and he's like an anarchist to try to, initially he's kind of like the anarchist and he's trying to overthrow the government because you have this totalitarian government.
V for Vendetta?
That's it. V is for Vendetta. And that's what these nuns look like. So they look like the V is for a vendetta type face, if you will, and it's painted on in their case. And it's quite frightening. And remember, who goes to baseball games? Families. Always. Yeah, exactly. Just like V is for Vendetta. Chris just showed me a picture on the phone. Families are the ones who actually are involved in going to baseball games. And then you bring this along, and it's anti-religion, anti-Westernism, anti-capitalism. What they want to do is to undermine your faith in everything, including the very foundations of what you believe and how you have been raised. And I think it's important to say that you can still have great faith and still believe in the tenets and principles of a church, even though there are individuals from the church that have done bad things. Okay? Because I think this has happened across many religions. It's like, oh, because some people did bad things, the whole church should be canceled. No, folks, that's not how it works. But we know what's really going on here is the LGBTQ plus people at Major League Baseball. They just don't believe in anything. Okay? And most importantly, they don't at all believe in religion and capitalism and Westernism. And they can't wait to groom your children, because why else would they go to a baseball game dressed like that? Causing your children to ask questions. Mommy, Daddy, I don't understand. They kind of are like dressed like nuns, but why are they dressed like that? I don't understand. And so now you are supposed to go to a baseball game and enjoy it with your family, a way to get away from reality. And instead, you're finding yourself having to explain to your children. Who allows this to happen? I mean, have the aliens, and I've said this before, I know, have the aliens literally landed on planet Earth and taken over common sense with a lot of these organizations like the MLB and Target? Speaking of which, targeting kids. Yeah, we have an update on that, ladies and gentlemen. Targeting kids. So, as you know, Target has been trying to groom children by having an entire clothing section in Target for babies, infants, elementary school students, middle school students, and high school students, as well as adults. You would normally, in normal times, say, if you want to do that for adults, that's fine. You could have an adult section. There it is. That's the section over there for trans adults. No. Target had to have the section up front for children and for infants. So once again, you have to explain to your children why this is happening. And obviously, depending on their age, generally speaking, as a parent, you're just trying to protect your children and make sure that, you don't tell them too much information, because you're just trying to keep the innocence of childhood going. Kind of makes sense. So in the wake of an ongoing customer backlash against Target, the retail chain's longtime partnership with a national activist group that places LGBT-themed books in K-12 school libraries and encourages teachers to discuss sex and gender with children in K-12 has gained renewed attention over the past decade. See, we thought it was just Target putting clothes in their stores for children. But no, it's actually Target that has supported with money LGBTQ plus books in public K-12 school libraries and encouraging teachers to discuss those books with your elementary and middle school and high school children. So Target's really not acting as a corporation trying to sell you stuff in their store. Oh, no. No, Target is an activist corporation using public monies, because it's a public traded company, using the stockholders' money who own Target to work against your values instead of just staying in their lane of selling stuff like a department store. Target donated $250,000 to GLSEN to advance its mission of creating, affirming, and accessible anti-racist spaces for LGBTQIA plus students, the retail giant said last year in a blog post celebrating Pride Month. This marks our 11th year of a partnership with a total of $2.1 million in support to date. So this scandal, ladies and gentlemen, is far greater than just the department store having the clothes, right? They're literally trying to confuse your children to the point that your children will be confused and they're going to have mental health issues for the rest of their lives because corporate America is trying to brainwash them into an ideology that separates them from their parents, from reality, from capitalism, from religion, from Westernism, from everything. That is what's really driving all this. And who are these evil people that are really pushing this? It's obviously a series of far left groups. But why are corporations caving is why I'm asking. Like, Chris, why do corporations cave? Like if one of these groups came to you and said, I want you to give us money so we can push these crazy ass books in kindergarten and first and second and third and fourth, fifth grade to teach kids that they really aren't a boy, they're really a girl, and they can da-da-da-da-da. What would you, a corporation, when you say, I'm sorry, no, get out of here. Well, then I'm not going to shop at your place and I'm going to shame you on Twitter and online. Well, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, to their shareholders who in normal times would probably say, and are saying, by the way, because obviously these crazy left-wing groups are the minority. I think that's true. They're the extreme minority, but they're the loudest. And that is always what happens, I think, in modern America. The people with the biggest mouths are the people with the smallest followings, but they are good at fooling you into thinking that their followings are massive, of trying to shame you into protecting your children. And let me tell you something, that's where the line is drawn in the sand. It really is. So all I'm saying is, ladies and gentlemen, about the targeting kids portion of this podcast is please send Target a message. You decide how you want to send, make sure it's a peaceful message, I'm just saying. But send Target a message. Maybe the message is, I'm just not going to shop there. Maybe the message is, I'm going to sell my Target stock. Maybe the message is that I'm going to write Target and write all my friends and tell them about it. That's all fine. But send them a message nonetheless that this cannot be tolerated, that grooming children and creating more and more mental health issues with children is evil. It's just plain evil. So next up, podcast listeners, we have the dumbest bill in America. Do you have a lead up, Mr. Producer? Here it is. And it's the dumbest bill in America, and it is menstrual products in boys' bathrooms in Oregon. Yes, you heard that correctly. In Oregon, ladies and gentlemen, there's a bill that passed, and it has now fully been implemented, the bill, that is, that requires tampon dispensers in K-12 boys' bathrooms in public schools. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Lake Ridge High School students, here's the article, and it is in the Blaze News. Is that what it is? Yes. Lake Ridge High School students have apparently been removing tampon dispensers from the walls of boys' bathrooms and depositing them in the toilet. So what they're doing is, and there's a picture, Chris can put that up. It's a tweeted picture and so forth. You won't believe this. So it's a huge dispenser. The dispenser looks to me like it's 3.5 feet long by a good 2 feet wide, maybe. And so imagine how big that is and how many tampons that holds. Probably hundreds, maybe hundreds. And it's in the boys' high school bathroom. By the way, they're in all boys' bathrooms, K-12. But in this case, it's in Lake Ridge High School boys' bathroom. And the boys were so disgusted with this device being put in their bathroom and just humiliated because, you know, they're high school boys and they're boys, not girls. They ripped it off of the bathroom wall and threw it into the toilet. And there's a picture of it. Oregon state law actually requires public schools to supply free tampons and sanitary pads in bathroom dispensers, including in restrooms designated for males. Yeah, for males. Quote, each time that dispensers are taken down, the school needs to spend time and resources putting them back up in order to be compliant with House Bill 3294, otherwise known as the Menstrual Dignity Act. So talk about Orwellian, right? The Menstrual Dignity Act. You would think, okay, so free tampons for girls. No, The Menstrual Dignity Act is actually free tampons for boys, K to 12 in their bathrooms in public schools. And where's the dignity? It's like the opposite of dignity. It's the Menstrual Insulting Act to boys because they don't menstruate. That's what the email said, at least, that each time that the dispensers are taken down, the school needs to spend time and resources putting them back to be compliant with House Bill 3294. Quote, we are asking our student body to be respectful of school property and to be sensitive to all our students' needs. Really? A boy does not need a tampon, right? There's only one place a boy could put his tampon. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't belong there. Meaning that the school system is actually encouraging more mental health issues of everybody. The absurd requirements to furnish free menstrual products in the boys' restroom reflects the metastasization, long word, of radical leftist gender ideology in society. Quote, this is a perfect example of throwing away tax dollars in Oregon public schools, Vice President of Parents Defending Education Caroline Moore said. According to the outlet, this isn't about vandalizing school property. We all know it's bad. The boys are signaling to the girls and signaling to the schools that they want to just be left alone in their bathrooms because that's where they go to bathroom. And so this so-called Menstrual Dignity Act in Oregon, the place where this happened, this school, and I thought this was kind of funny. This particular, Lake Ridge High School? Let's just see. I just want to get this straight. Lake Ridge High School in Oregon is in the, quote, Beaverton School District. Yeah. So there are menstrual products in boys' bathrooms, K to 12, in the Beaverton School District. There's a lot to talk about there. Not sure I can cover it on this particular podcast. Yeah, Chris?
They should put urinals in the girls' bathroom.
That's right. Yeah, right. That's a great idea, Chris. So why not put male urinals in the girls' bathrooms? And we'll see how that works out, right? Trying to use a tampon as a dude is equally difficult as trying to use a male urinal as a girl. It never ends well, right? It's just not going to end well. And here's the thing. Some state legislator in Oregon had to think of this bill, okay, and then had to get it passed, and they passed it, and the governor signed it. And now it's law, and it was passed last year, but it finally has been implemented in Oregon, where they finally bought all the machines, because obviously it takes a lot of time between the time a law passes and the time that it's ultimately implemented. The law's now fully implemented, and you have these stupid dispensers in every single boy's bathroom, K to 12. Mommy, I'm in 5th grade. I don't understand. There's this thing in the boys' bathroom. I don't understand. What's this, Mommy? It's like, oh, give that to me, little Harry. We'll talk to you about that later when you decide to become a girl, what do you say? It's just ridiculous. And that's why we do the dumbest bill in America, because we want to shame the morons and idiots who are elected officials who can't think of other things to do, like, I don't know, make kids start learning again in public schools? I don't know, making the streets safer in Oregon? I could just think of all kinds of things they could do to make society better. Maybe cutting taxes? Maybe helping people live a better life so they get to keep more of their own money? Oh, no. The thing we find to be a priority is to put menstrual products in boys' bathrooms, K to 12. Not adults, boys, because it just makes them more confused. And it whole kind of creates our desire and fits with our overall plan of destroying society and making everybody incredibly ill, mentally ill. Obviously, these people are mentally ill. So, sorry, I just run out of things to say when it comes to this other than to say this. To the Beaverton School District, keep your menstrual products there. And that's the dumbest bill in America. Menstrual products in Oregon boys' bathrooms. And that's it for Mark and the Millennials. Thank you for joining Mark and the Millennials. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to our producer, Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Getter, Truth Social, Rumble, and our website. See you next time.